As Professor Borisov said, my name is Fabio Galvis. Thank you everyone to be here. So it was explained by him. The presentation will talk about the production of the space in education. And what we're going to do is the format of the presentation will be very simple. It is more like a brief exposition in theory in a TED style. So what I'm going to do is to explain what is like the main idea of this and what are like the aims and some examples, some practical examples where you can see how what I'm explaining or what I'm going to talk about, these crisscrosses between architecture and education can be seen and how can they, with the right direction, can help to develop critical thinking in young students. So for this, I would like to start making a little introduction to the topic. I'm going to share the screen to show you a little presentation that I prepared for you. Is it working?
Yes, we see your screen.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I'm going to turn off the camera so the internet works better. So, as it was said before, the promotion of critical thinking education through architectural design, a critical approach to Lefebvre's production of the social space. So, first, I would like to discuss what we understand as education. So, and how this is connected with the architecture. So, if we understand the space, like the architecture of the space, we have to bear in mind that it obeys to some purposes, design, relations that are between the teachers and the students, in this particular case that we are talking about education. In 1833, Arthur Roebuck thought that he said that education is a duty of the government. And he started talking about the control of the population, the production of the social system to reproduce what is good, to promote what is good, and of course to avoid what he understands as what can be evil or can damage the society of his time. So in this matter is how it started like mass schooling system. After that, in the late 1800 and during the early 1900, it started what we understand as the monitorial or the Lancastrian system. So what the idea of this is that to have a massive population inside the classrooms. And as I suppose the majority of you already know, so the idea was to give young students the possibility of teach to even younger students. So if you know something regarding, for example, to mathematics, you can help the teacher reproducing what you already know, helping younger students than you are, so students that are in lower levels. And that was a very good way for this time to try to massificate education. After that, during the 18th, late 18th and the beginning of the 19th century, we faced the introduction of the Prussian system education that, as we know, we still have it as a kind of model in some of our schools. And this shows that education is not evolving at the same time that the society is doing it. So part of this presentation will be a little critic of it, and at the same time, seeing some of the proposals that have been emerging during the last decades, basically, as an answer to these kind of problematics. So if we see this position of the space, you can see like these massive areas where everyone is sitting in the same way, disposing the body in the same way, the discipline is part of it. And this is a heritage of these two models that I already talked about, the Lancastrian system and the Prussian system. And that is what we do still in some of our schools. Actually, when I had the opportunity to work as a teacher in a school, one of my first experiences as a teacher was in a very old building where the teacher had like a little stage, and the students were sitting in front, and it looks honestly like a jail, and all the walls were gray, and it was sad. Just to be there was sad, and I had to deal with it to try to teach philosophy to the students and to try to make them, like it was really complicated to try to put them immersed into the situation where they have to think outside the box somehow, but still we were immersed into this gray, sad area. So with the students, we tried to make it a little bit better. We made some paintings and so on the walls, and we improved it. But still, this was part of it. It was immersed into this kind of how to say, like system in a way, or way of thinking education. And of course, I had to check, in part of my duty, I had to check the uniform that the students were wearing, because they had to wear uniforms. Even during this time, still is an issue in some schools, and how the students were sitting, and they had, according to the school, they should have one chair where they could sit and they couldn't change it. So those were little agreements that we did with the students, and we changed this with the time, because we understood that, and it's my way of seeing it, that the space at the same time reveals these ways and relations of power that I didn't want to hold with my students by that time. So this presentation is going to be about that too. So I understood that architecture and the disposition of the space is a kind of language. It has meanings. The buildings have meanings, and how they are organized and disposed, they also try to communicate. And so I remember when I was preparing for this presentation, uh, this is like the way of understanding this. So we have the classrooms that are the traditional way of seeing the school, right? Like all the places are organized in the same way. The classrooms have the same distribution, like this place where I used to work. And how to transform that into, for example, a project area, or a reading room, or a shared room, or an area of multimedia, or a playing room, or a room for music that is at the same time next to the reading room. So this is what I'm going to try to explain, or to tell you how it is working nowadays. So these are kind of flex labs, how the spaces can be distributed, as the name indicates, towards flexibility. That is something that we are going to show later. So I remember, and I'm going to start, this is going to be crazy, but I'm going to start talking about ants, because when I was a child, I remember this situation when I lived in a house that was outside, like kind of outside the city, like in a suburban area. And in this house in front, we have a beautiful garden. I was a child there, probably I had like 9 or 10 years old, or maybe a little bit younger. And I remember I was really into sitting and seeing the ants for hours and hours. And I saw that the ants, they had like some paths that they used to, like to cover all the time, like the same ones, and they follow one to each other, knowing, and when they met that they were from a different colony, they knew it. So I was curious about it, and I started searching why. And so they have a, a waxy layer that covers the bodies, and they have a very complex like system of communication that is based on the smell. And I found this because I was so curious about the ants that I really wanted to know how was this working. How was possible that they? Because, I mean, to me as a child, they look all the same. Maybe they had different colors sometimes, but that was not a total full answer. So I started searching about this, and I saw that, or I found that they have 4 to 5 times more odor receptors than other insects. I know this since I was 10. And so this is an image that I found recently just for this presentation. And this is how the ants are producing these odors that they help to communicate to each other. So this odor is acting like a biochemical uniform, and they help them to understand where they belong, like the colony and the space, the space where they belong, and the routes that they have to take, and so on. So I nowadays I can understand that this was kind of critical reflection because it's a reasoning process that made meaning to me myself as a child who was 8 years old to understand all of these processes through the experience, to be involved into this environment and to being connected with the situation. Okay, I'm going to stop here a little bit. And I can go back to the camera. So, where am I going to just, where I'm going and what I'm trying to explain, what I'm going to tell you. So, during my studies here this I discovered during my master program. I'm already finishing my PhD. I found this philosopher, Lefebvre, that probably you all know, that he lived between 1901 and 1991, and he was talking about the production of the space. So this book was written in 1974, and he was talking about how we produce and recreate the space. He talks about the development of the cities, but at the same time, he can give us some insights about education. Why? Because he talks or he says that the space is produced by humans, and the space is only possible when it's social, because it's a social product. So the space is perceived, is lived, is conceived only by us. So it is dependent on humans, and every society can produce their own spaces and the way of interacting with the objects and what is in there. So it is also said by this author, he is kind of neo-Marxist, and he understands that the space is embedded into the capital hegemony. And so it can be physical, can be mental, it depends on the social relation. And this help to mold us, to create us, and to recreate us. And is the role of the government to help people and societies to interact with this space. So like to produce the area. And this is very important because here we're talking about the investment. So according to the investment, we can have, of course, some security about how the space is going to be done, and some research about what a particular area of the city needs. In this case that we're talking about education, so we can see, for example, how the state can consider that some particular area of the city needs a new school or a high school or a preschool or garden. So this situation lead us to understand the following. I'm going to show you the screen again. Okay, it's working, right? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So what I'm going to talk now is to show some examples where these concepts that Lefebvre is talking about, the appropriation of the space, can be seen in this sphere of education. So in the proposal that I submit, that I was planning to talk about, or I'm planning to talk about, is about the Swedish example of the Vitra schools. These schools are developed, or they are designed by Rosanne Bosch, which is an architect, and she possesses a group of architects that is called Bosch Architects. So they developed these areas These are elementary schools, and there are some high schools as well in Denmark, but they belong to another group of architects, where the children they have open spaces. So you have classrooms, but they are classrooms that are flexible. And this is what I was talking here, like how to transform these like solid walls into these areas that can change. You know, today can be a project area, and tomorrow can be a shared room, and after tomorrow can be the room of music or theater, for example. So this is the proposal of this group of architects that they are called like flex walls in general, and this is about flex labs. So these flex walls, the idea is that the designers of these, the group of architects, they had meetings with the teachers, with the parents, and with the students as well. So the children, they were saying what they wanted for the school. And something that they saw is that it was not enjoyable for the children, the time that they were spending there, partly because of the design of the place, because of the architecture, because it was boring, because it felt like a prison somehow, and because it was not enjoyable in general. And that made the process of learning even harder. And so they had as a way to go, as an arrow that was aiming, this cooperative design that where everyone could be involved, and they created these flexible spaces with operable walls, and they wanted to keep natural light, air exchange. That was something that the children were asking for, and these are places where, for example, they can have this area as a space for arts or for music, but also they can work and interact in individual projects or common projects and discuss science or literature and so on. So there are collaborative spaces where the students can be there during the lessons or after them. And they always have the possibility to talk to each other and to work with the tutor or with the teacher. Part of this project also involves the opportunity, or they aim to be multicultural and multilinguistic. In the schools that they were developed by Rosenbach, but also by different architects like HMFH Group or Kraus Anderson in Denmark and in the United States, they try, I mean, the school, because they were discussing it since the beginning, they tried to attract people from different nationalities, and they can work in English and also in their own languages. So children are having this connection with people from different cultures since they are 5 or 6 or even younger. And this is showing part of what education should be. That is not only about learning mathematics, but also interacting with the other, being more tolerant, learn languages, learn cultures. So this is a kind of this is another one. This is the main website of the Centerview Elementary School in Minnesota, United States. And as you can see, so they say in the website, like, we create partnership between the staff, students, and family. They had the same principle that was started by the Vitra schools in Sweden. About this is a new school. This one Centerview in Minnesota, but the Bosch schools, they started in Sweden about 10 or 15 years ago already. So this is the part of the school that was inspiring the Vitra school as well, where you have these auditoriums where children can go there, sit, working their projects. So they are all the time reflecting, seeing what are they doing well or wrong with the help of other children as well of the tutor in open areas. Here you can see on the right side, this is an old school. And I like this one because it is not like the other ones that are built from zero and they have like a lot of budget. But in this example that was built by Kraus Anderson group of architects, they took an old building and they did the same that the Bosch company did in Sweden. They sit and started talking with the students what they would like to see in their own school, how to help them to appropriate the places, and the teachers as well. And they decided here on the right, you can see that there are some of the things that the own students produce. So it is very interesting because children can see what the students of elder levels are doing, and they are seeing that it's possible, you know, and this part of the appropriation of the space is very interesting. And this school, I don't have this picture, but this school also has a hall that works as a library. So it is the entrance of the school. They have a hall they can go into, and they have like electronic devices that they work for electronic resources, and also physical devices. And so the idea of this is that children can work with small groups, if it's possible, or large group, or even multiple classrooms, according to the project that they are focusing on. So the idea of all of this, that is what I'm going to try to conclude with, because we're almost outside the time already. We have 20 minutes. So is that this is a learning studio. It's a concept that talks about creativity. What they are trying to do is to inspire the children and not being stuck in the same place. And they are focusing in something that they call 4C. These schools have these 4C rules: collaboration, creativity, communication, and critical thinking. 1 second, por favor. 1 second, please. I will need to stop sharing. Okay, so this what is this telling us? And is the same, and it's connected with the example that I gave about when I was a child. So critical reflection should be descriptive, should be analytical, should be critical and articulated. That goes through written expression, oral expression, artistic expression. And I consider that this new model of education, kind of new model of education, that is following constructivism, applied into architecture, are trying to reveal this and to put in discussion what we have been doing till now, or till a couple of decades ago, with our elementary and basic schools. So I know that there are people that are interested into philosophy for children, for example. So this architectural design maybe can be a way, and this is open for discussion. So this can be a way to start developing critical thinking in children in a very easy way. And why not start introducing topics of philosophy, since they have the opportunity to actually interact with the teachers, with elders, and they are working in these individual or communal projects. That is part of the educational proposal. So thank you everyone for your attention. And here I am, if, I don't know, you would like to ask something. So the program was organized for 20 minutes. I just did the perfect time. So we have 15, 20 minutes to discuss. I have been interested in this topic for a couple of years, so probably, I don't know, I'm open here to hear any opinion. Thank you a lot.